Hey, I'm live. Welcome to the Stash vlog. Uh, yes, just what you need. More babble about the impeachment process. Have you tuned in? Uh, I've never seen anything like it. It's bizarre. The no quid pro quo talk. Uh, to the best of my knowledge, the president has released the transcript of his call. I sound like a Republican guy, but whatever. I'll be going more neutral in a moment. And then then as far as I know, they asked the president, the new president, or the relatively new president of Ukraine, Zelensky, Mr. Zelensky, did you feel pressure? He says no. It's completely political. Any way you cut it, the House belongs to the Democrats and the Senate belongs to the Republicans. The case doesn't seem very strong to me. They're calling the president a dictator. I'll go right to my main point. If you noticed, both the RNC, the GOP, and the DNC are like, we had to get aid to Ukraine. It's like unquestionable. What that involves is war. What good has meddling and interventionism done the United States of America, friends? Really? It's like it's unquestionable. You're unallowed to talk about aid. What happened in Vietnam? The Gulf of Tonkin is under question now. And then we were there. The idea that it was an emergency when the United States had to defeat communism. We wound up losing over 50,000, and I don't know, untold Vietnamese lives, and we weren't able to back up the South Vietnamese, and this country has always, or had for a long time, treated the Vietnam vets very poorly. What were they to do? They got drafted. And there's other entanglements that are questionable. Was it essential to invade Grenada? Anyway, back to this. So it looks like American politics has gone completely James Bond now. It's all whistleblowers, intelligence people. If we rewind a little bit back to Russiagate, it was, as far as I know, of course they try to deny it. It started with the MI6 guy who's tight with the FBI, and he releases the Steele dossier. Which, correct me if I'm wrong, it has something to do with Trump wanted to hire some hookers to pee on a bed where Obama slept or something. And there's this bit endless thing that Trump is connected to Russia. Russia and Ukraine. But if you noticed, both parties go up and go, we had to give this aid. Is it against the law to criticize both parties for the fact of getting involved? And they're saying, oh, well, what was his intention? I say the president hasn't done anything wrong. I think he was thinking of getting out of involvement for it. Like, oh, you called up on Joe Biden. I think there's no question that Ukraine doesn't have a reputation of Albania, which consists of weapons running and prostitution. I don't know. You can look it up. Sorry, Albania. believe it's the nationality of the most awesome situational comic ever, John Belushi. That's what I know about Albania. But and other than that, you can look it up. Ukraine went through an orange revolution. What was the involvement of the U.S. intelligence in that? None. I think you're not allowed to talk about that either. Oh, what sites did you get that from? Even the war and the Kosovo situation, which, by the way, Senator Sanders voted for. Slobodan Milosevic, if you look him up, he died somehow in prison in The Hague. If you look him up, I think they exonerated him or something, and there's a big base over there. So the American people, we have a short memory of this stuff. And you know, I think there's a thing, it's a combination of Hollywood movies and politics, and that we get this story that there's a country in trouble and we've got to intervene. We've got to intervene. And now it's been for a long time. We've got to contain Russia's aggression. It's the largest uninterrupted landmass country in the world. They don't have the population to go after any more land. Their whole thing is they have to defend it. But is it like, oh, it feels like it's forbidden to talk about this. I think Tucker Carlson is like the only guy that goes into, maybe it's not a good idea. Russia, and just, if you're talking about threats, I mean, you know, are they really a threat? Every day, everybody on NPR, even some on the Fox, definitely on the MSNBC, Rachel Maddow is saying that this Russia has meddled in our elections. that we are in trouble. That Trump is a puppet of Russia. Despite, I don't think he's taken down sanctions. Now you can Google it up, and if you really covered things, you check out. There's a Professor Stephen Cohen that warned about too much tension. Even Noam Chomsky, although Chomsky is an advocate of removing Assad. So there's two things going on. We got Syria confronting the Russians in Syria, and we were, and now the Ukraine, which means borderlands. Ukraine and Kiev. I don't know what they call it, Kiev. I don't know why these ambassadors call it. As far as I know, it's Kiev. Is the spiritual capital of Russia. The home of Saint Vladimir. For whatever reason, I think it was, Gorbachev let them start this independence initiative. Also, every politician in the United States refers to the Russians as invading the Crimea. Oh, well, they annexed it. Okay. So not to sound like a KGB. That's KGB. Or an FSB or whatever. In their defense, have you heard of any people in Crimea complaining, attacking any cop stations over there, or some kind of separatist group or anything coming up? And you're talking about, there's a lot of stories about corruption in Ukraine. And the oil company. And Hunter Biden is in trouble for his paternity thing. He won't let anybody look at his records. And he was kicked out of I believe, the Marine Corps for drug problems. I think it was allegedly crack cocaine. And all of a sudden, he's, many people against the Biden's side have said this guy doesn't know anything about the business that Burisma is into. Democrats have gone the other way, and unfortunately, the Republicans who have well defended the president have also, I believe, advocated this aid, which is lethal aid, javelin missiles and stuff, getting involved in war. I'll leave a story in the notes that that's the thing that you'll find, that the politicians in the United States are generally warmongers. Incredibly, Trump, a tough-talking guy in the construction business, you would think stylistically he would have already racked up an amazing, Obama. Now they don't like to talk about this. He has his detractors will say he has bombed 7 countries. He has opened, I guess you would refer to as theater of operations, and NATO, who's involved in the removing of Muammar Gaddafi of Libya. Additional bombing everywhere. And I believe he was said to use, I like to drone. And I heard this guy, I think he was on the Joe Rogan show, and he said, Trump has escalated his drone use 462% or some number like that, which I find that sounds like absolute bullshit. When in reality, the Trump deplorables have been sort of supporting him on some of the bellicose talk, go after Iran and so forth. And if you read between the lines, it looks like he's been trying to stay out of any major conflict. And there was take it for what you want. BuzzFeed had an article that he was in the room with the generals, and he went after them like, what do we need all these bases? They're expensive. And the sacrosanct NATO and bases in Europe, costing the empire is costing a fortune. Is it sustainable? How can you hold all these bases worldwide and hold down the Middle East as well? But you're not allowed to talk about this stuff. And there's a book, I'll also leave the name of that in the line of notes, that said the guy was a detractor. I think it was Mearsheimer, or I'll leave that in there. But he said basically whoever became president now is going to have to pare down on this empire building stuff. So as much as they like it on the major news networks, it's just not sustainable. But if you notice, everybody with academic credentials or professional news people, they're like, oh no, there's no way we can pare back on NATO, the danger. And it doesn't matter whether it's NPR or Fox or CNN, or whether they hate Trump or they love Trump, whatever. They all tend to push the idea that of this interventionism, that we've got to go in. Who among us hasn't gotten caught up with it? As far as I haven't, as a citizen, determined what I really think about the General Soleimani drone strike attack. They were surrounding the embassies. Hezbollah, known as the Party of God, was allegedly hanging around. And the president said there was a threat to additional embassies. But you noticed he was initially praised for it. But it's never enough, is it? maybe about 15 minutes they laid off him after he killed this general. A lot of people are like, no, it's he was an important general. And there was a standoff, and if you talk to people from the Middle East, they're like, well, we raised the red flag and we kicked your ass. We've shown that these missiles penetrated the American bases. And now they're saying, well, the Pentagon hasn't released it. Unfortunately, there were something like 11 soldiers injured or more, unfortunately. But you'd have to question whether or not there wasn't an old school or back channel relationship, and that the Iranians and the Americans are going at it in the news media, but actually they did pretty good in letting the conflicts, get more out of hand. So there's definitely more of a backstory to that. And they're like, well, was there a wag the dog? Or, I mean, what if you're going after the president for impeachment and there's pressure on him, and there's that can cut both ways, because the during the way back there's a during the Carter administration there was a seizing of the embassy, and he looked bad. There was talk that everybody in the embassy was in the CIA or whatever. Tie a yellow ribbon. I read about that. They're still captured. And conveniently, they were released time to make the Reagan administration look really good. But that's another story that you can't talk about. It's just like there seems to be little or no discussion on either political of the major political parties that you can't get involved in Ukraine. Oh, if we didn't give aid, he would fall. What responsibility is the United States to prop up the government of Ukraine and get involved in war? Why is it, as Adam Schiff was going crazy, we've got to, he basically declared war more or less on Russia. We can never just sit here, and I think he named it, any place where there's aggression going on. And they had the Mueller probe, and he's out there for what? A year, 2 years? That's unheard of when you have foes, two sides. It's like a divorce court thing. Each side is lying in there. They're giving it their all, and he comes up and he said, well, that doesn't excuse anything. And he was mumbling. There's a new article. I will also leave that in the line notes, that the guy, that his friends were like, he wasn't himself. He was sick. They got him numerous times. Did you even read your own report? He started to look like an old doddering puppet. But no, it's like it was even on Saturday Night Live. Did you get anything? Whatever. It's getting ridiculous. And every news service ends with Russia collusion. They're hacking. They're but yet they have nothing. They're like, oh, it's Cozy Bear and Fuzzy Bear, allegedly. And on the flip side, the other major party, also a war party, I mean, Comey had to admit, well, he said, well, there's, we didn't feel we'd send us forward for prosecution when the emails were destroyed and not given over, using GPS. People like Malcolm Nance, CIA expert, they just spouted. Well, he would have compromat on him. A man like Trump would have compromat. It all sounds very exciting, but they have nothing. They have nothing. It's like every wine mom in the United States wants a war with the Russians. I don't know how many times if I've discussed it with them, they get mad at me. I go, well, you go. Anybody who advocates this interventionist stuff should be prepared that they would be the ones that would have to go. You know, not just for the emotional pleasure of watching the immense, massive American war machine on TV, engaging in yet another fight. Which, from everything you might read about it, that it was too much to handle, too hot to handle in Syria. They had squared off, and there was problems. A lot of near misses. Warnings from Putin, like, what do you want to start a nuclear war? And the shame of it is, when they were extremely communist, a lot on the left were fans of the USSR, and then they would make fun of Reagan's tear that wall down, of Reagan's war on the then Soviet Union. And of course, in World War II, they were a valid ally, and there's no way to cut it. They did the worst of the fighting. They lost the most guys, but that's all forgotten now. Now that they're back to their Orthodox Christianity, they're and they're nationalistic and this and that. Oh, they're the ultimate evil. As far as I know, there's very few more evil countries than them. But you can't even discuss this. I've talked, you talk to people. It's Rachel Maddow. They're behind every rock. I haven't even caught up to certain aspects. I don't know. If President Trump has gone into deeper super Russian sanctions or whatever. Or it just goes on and on. That you don't have to be any kind of expert to realize that some of the accusations are insane. I mean, what I could ask what if you're listening to this and you're getting pissed off and you're a fan of MSNBC and you think I'm a scumbag here and a Russia lover, I'm not exactly. Not on all counts. Anybody watches this little YouTube channel knows that I'm for Poland, Polska. And you gotta, when you meet somebody, that's another point about this politics. So when you meet somebody, and you're gonna go at somebody from Poland because they like Trump, and therefore you're a scumbag. Well, he's got them visa waivers that they've never had before, and they were an exiled army ally of the United States, whose contribution to the war is completely ignored. I have over 20 of these things saying there's a Colonel Matt Irvine. If you stack it up, he's got more medals than, if you look at the details of it, there's delayed. He's got more medals than Audie Murphy, the #1 guy. And in the European theater, Stanley Gabretsky, another Polish-American guy. The best fighter pilot in the European theater for the Americans. It's up for debate, which is tougher. There were some great pilots like Boeington in the Pacific theater, and they were tremendous and this and that. But some people, you might say, well, the excellent German airplanes, maybe it was even harder to be a Gabretsky. But he's unknown in that capacity. There's no TV show for him. There's no big movie. There's no movie, and there never will be any movie about Colonel Matt Irvine. But this was all in the mix. And during World War II, though, the communists, the Russians, were a very valued ally at that time. But now they're Putin. because Americans don't like to get into historical stuff that much. And you'll talk to most people and say, what do you get this information about? What I'm saying in this vlog it could be obtained by reading the beloved New York Times and Washington Post and just being skeptical. But if you talk to, in particularly, really, college-age people in the United States or whatever, nothing is to be trusted. Only those sources, and people's hardships that they go through for their own identity, things that have gone against them, are the only thing that matter. Not like Madeleine Albright bragged, or she said she was, we're talking 500,000 kids in Iraq. And she said it was worth it, So you shouldn't say bad things to people, and there shouldn't be any kind of prejudice, and that on the face of it is good, might be a good thing, although it's taken to perhaps extreme. But does it compare to the body counts that happened so quickly with this intervention stuff? In the book Fear by Bob Woodward, he goes after Trump in it. He's questioning him. Trump's street talk and unorthodox style is hated by, career bureaucrats, politicians, and Wall Street, scientists, academics. But yet he makes it happen, at least for himself, right? They'll say, well, he got broke or whatever. People just reflexively call him stupid, but he beat all those Republican guys, and he beat the war chest, and he beat Hillary Clinton. He beat the FBI, apparently, and the CIA, the deep state, Hollywood, and they still call him dumb. Whether or not he wins in 2020, like Carlson said in a recent YouTube thing or on Fox or wherever he's on, don't take for granted that he's going to win. But I haven't seen anybody say what I say. Maybe Carlson saying that both parties are calling for, lethal aid, javelin missiles, and involvement. How much is it done? And now they're saying that the Pentagon is going to protect Colonel Vindman against some GOP lady that said something about it. So he needs protection from a woman, some Republican woman. I mean, the smooth talking NPR people, watch what they say. What when they went in, and now Colin Powell speaking out against this. Oh, this is terrible. How could Trump abandon Ukraine? And an academic supposedly everything he says is sacrosanct. Noam Chomsky, and he's like, oh yeah, we got to remove Assad too. And Bernie Sanders, again, I'll leave in the line. He's supposed to be the greatest, nicest guy. He's got a long war record. He pitches and defends the F-35 fighter like hell. He pressured Clinton to go in. Kosovo. Yugoslavia. Hey, go on here and defend it in the liner notes. What good has it done anything blowing away those people? As far as I know, he died in prison or something. Slobodan Milosevic, evil guy or whatever. Then the Hague, I believe they exonerated him. But this stuff just goes by. So, and then the left will switch and go, well, it's as Eisenhower warned about the military-industrial complex, the congressional military-industrial complex, and da 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 da. They can't bring themselves to say maybe on a couple of times Trump is trying to back off on this war stuff, but it doesn't matter because he's like a guy, construction, foul-mouthed construction worker guy, which I think it's excellent. I think after all this time that the guy had the guts to say something, or he did, or that might be the closest we get. There were no weapons of mass destruction, and Trump bitched about it. Has he let us down on some of this bellicose stuff and war stuff? Put it in the line notes and tell me where he has. So if the American people have to try to back up anytime the president goes against war, because they like to go for war. How many of them tried? I don't think way back in the day that some of them always did want to go in. Remember the Maine, Hearst, Rosebud. He was like, you give me a war, I'll give you the paper article or whatever. Remember the Maine? That was very suspicious. Some people say even the Lusitania that got World War I go, oh, but it's a conspiracy. It's a conspiracy. So that's what I hate. If you have your own opinion right away, they're going to say that you're an Alex Jones. I don't even know if he's on anymore. Have I said too much? But it's interesting. Everybody in the Twitter is like, oh my God. Russian agents, Russian assets. Yet how did they do it? Did they stuff the ballots in Kentucky? So they bought Facebook ads? The truth of the matter is Trump was up front. He had General Flynn with him. They're like, oh, Flynn, we've got Flynn, traitor. He called out the company, the establishment, when he was pissed off about aid to the extremist, which would amount to ISIS in Syria, and he didn't like it. And he sent shockwaves. As far as Hillary Clinton, she deleted all the emails. She had a private server in her house, unprotected. And I am told, and I have read that you can easily get into it, and it was a form of a violation of which he said, well, she was guilty of being sloppy, and still, that's a penalty. General Petraeus, he at least got probation for it. I think John Deutsch, CIA director, lost his clearance. He was in trouble for this type of thing. There was another guy, and I think he was in the Navy. He took pictures in the boiler room or something, and he did time. But Mrs. Clinton, nothing. And there's rumors that she'll run for president again. And that guy, H.A. Goodman, says she's going to run. And Trump's going to win. I'm on here 35 minutes. Basically, pushing for peace. So somebody listens to this. What do you think? You read everything in the paper. The Washington Post is the Central Intelligence Agency, basically. The Times. Everything's the DOD. And yet people who criticize this stuff, they just go, well, Trump is the most evil, and that's it. When he's trying to pull out of these things. When he wanted peace talks with North Korea. When he had Bolton on him. When the Iranians shot down a drone, he didn't go for it. But yet, the Times and the Post and the MSNBC, most of the Fox, they all want to go into war. And maybe you got a kid. Maybe you should get over the fact that Trump talks like a construction worker, and go after him by all means if he goes for war. But if he doesn't, why don't you maybe think about that you got a kid? And forget about gutter room talk, and remember that your kid might go if we get in with the who knows? The Chinese and Russia and China were just recently training, and actually, it's my understanding that a lot of young people did go out. Oh, they don't like Trump, so they thought they were going to get drafted, so they went to the draft website. Whatever. Maybe think about that. All right, that's it for my rant. Let me know what you guys think. God bless. Peace. Start talking to people that disagree with you on this stuff with civil. So be civil and work it out. No war. Ciao.